Hello there. Yeah, I'm a sensitive guy. I know I'm sensitive because I can feel it. And over Christmas, it's always, over December and January, it's always an emotional time, I think, looking back. Christmas is a time to spend your time with family and stuff, and I miss that, not being able to be around family and having so much distance between me and a lot of friends. And then, things that happened to me, recently I met somebody and there was a misunderstanding over in the emails and that person kind of cancelled our friendship over email and that upset me quite a bit. And other little things like that caused me to go back, caused me to go into my mind. My heart closes and I don't really know what to do for a while. And that's what happened to me. I went into my mind and my mind then started to get cold, purposeless. And a lot of other things, like I've said on a lot of videos that, we're looking for ways of changing society. I am anyway, here on these videos. A lot of us, we want to make a world a better place. We're not using YouTube as a community in that sense, just to find friends, but to actually share information. And, we'll obviously meet each other. And that's a fantastic thing that comes out of it. But for me, the most important thing is to share information and see information. So that, everyone's working on different parts of the puzzle. And so I'm working on my part of the puzzle and I'm looking at what other people are doing and I'm trying to find out why it's going wrong for them and put a lot of time in, a lot of effort. And sometimes I feel very alone with that research, And there came a point in my life where I had to seriously look into law. My own life has always been based off determining my own actions. And it is a human right declared by and recognised by governments as a human right, the right to self-determination. And so then how can I determine my own life with so much legislation controlling and restricting it, And this is a question I asked, and a question that I answered for myself. But the answer is a brave answer. There is no written proof. It's a conclusion that you have to make for yourself, and I made that conclusion. And to make that conclusion meant for me that I had to see the world in a different way. I had to stop looking at everything that was wrong with the world in that way that I'm just finding faults. I had to start looking at where I could make changes, where I had responsibilities, where what was mine because of responsibility, because of a duty. What I own has a owe. I owe something when I own something, And so these concepts, these realizations meant that I had to re-look at legislation, government legislation, laws, rights, rules. I had to look at anything that was available. And so I had to give everything another chance. And that was why I had to give the Bible another chance. I'd always hated the book because it seemed to cause so much confusion, so many wars, so much madness, so much divide. People, just the popular ideas of Adam and Eve and Noah and everything just seemed so stupid. But then I picked up the book and I started to read with a different intention, because now I had no other choice. I had to see life. I had to see life in a different way. I had to see what was right and not what was left, not what was wrong. I had to see what was right about life. And if you're always picking on things that are wrong about things to get your high ground, then you can't see the potential. You can't be optimistic or enthusiastic about life if you can only see what's wrong, and you never manage to find where your power is, where the laws allow you to be you. And I found my answers in the Bible, and it sounds, as I say those words, I found my answers in the Bible, would sound to many a viewer, and would sound to me in the past like I had found religion, I had found God, no, nothing changed in me. I always knew who God was. That thing, that force, that inspiration inside of me that was calling me to do something for the good of man, and not to listen to teachers and preachers and lawmakers and vicars and people of any type of authority. The idea was that I wasn't the highest authority, but that authority was talking to me straight, direct, and not through a pope or a vicar or a judge. Something was talking to me. I never called it God. I never wanted to. Everybody who used the word God seemed to be confused. And I was so focused about this connection, this relationship I have with the universe. I thought that can't be in the Bible because so many people are missing it. And I wouldn't even relate my own relationship to the universe as being writable. But then I realise it. And the Bible, it's such a difficult task now because, I know how we all are. I know how I was. I know how, but I can't remember why I used to see the Bible in that way. 44 years long of my life, to see the Bible as such a book, and then to force myself to read it different and find another more logical conclusion. And so then I talk to other people and try and get people interested in the Bible, and it's more trouble than it's worth. Most people are, I don't like the Bible, I don't trust a book with talking snakes, It's thousands of years old, how can they know what's happening today? All of these types of standard kind of questions that come in when it comes to the Bible, they never come in with any other book. Nobody ever says, oh, Lord of the Rings, it's a stupid book, there's no archaeological evidence of Middle-earth ever existing and Sauron didn't exist. There's no arguments about, Lord of the Rings and whether you can actually be invisible and stuff. There's no argument about normal literature. And so I'm wondering, what is that phobia that we've developed about the Bible? Is it childhood traumas? I know a lot of people have got a lot of reasons to dislike the Bible. It seems biased for men, It seems biased against homosexuals. It seems biased against all kinds of different groups. But it's because people are reading it as if it's some kind of historical divine account. As if those things really happened and those people are really like saviours and saints and things, Rather than just reading it like you would read Lord of the Rings. Obviously, there's religions have taken inspiration from the Bible and then used the Bible for their religion. That's why there's so many different religions, but still one Bible. You may say there's many translations. Yes, each Bible's been translated into the spirit of its culture. But for myself, I found the answer, the connection between scripture and law. And now I realise most people are not really interested in law. It's like a brick wall when you say to people, let's have a look at law, because that's where we're being restricted and that's where our power of attorney lies. Oh, I don't get interested in politics. But law is not politics. Law is law. Law controls every facet of our lives. To not be interested in law and politics would be to not be interested in your own life and that of your friends, really, if you think about it. And I admit, for years, for decades, I didn't want to look at law. I did not want to look at legislation. If I got a letter through the letterbox, I would read it as quick and as briefly as as swiftly through as possible, so that I didn't have to put myself through that mundane, hypnotic effect of that bureaucratic language. Just the sight of that court seal, that national seal on the header of that paper, on that leaf of paper there, just like an eye looking at you, with your name and your address on. That power has seemed to numb everybody. People think that law is just for lawyers, and there's procedures and that, but there's a lot more to law. There's legislation, there's law, there's ecclesial law, there's common law, there's American common law, there's British common law, there's German law, Napoleonic law, UCC merchant law, Admiralty maritime law. The list goes on, Semitic law. The list of the amount of laws that goes on, you start to realise, hang on a sec, what have they all got in common? We seem to live in a world where everybody seems to have accepted that we have our identity, our name and address and everything registered with our government, and then all of the laws apply to us, and that's all. That's it. There's nothing we can learn there. There's nothing we can do there. There seems to be some kind of notion that we need to end this system, that we need to stop government or something. And I used to see it the same way. I used to think this madness has to stop. Until I realised, and I looked around for a second, and I thought most people are sat at home eating ice cream, watching TV. We live like kings and queens. What madness? It's like the madness of a kingdom, where we all know we could have much better lives and more, but that more isn't more ice cream, more television. It's more from each other, more human expression, more spirit. Now, nobody talks about spirit. People talk about spirituality and stuff, but spirit, something you have, your enthusiasm, your spirit, the way you feel, that's spirit. You put spirit into things when you draw a picture, write a letter, make a piece of music. You're putting spirit into it, giving something life. And this understanding, it's just, we don't have an understanding of how we do that as humans, that we spirit things. We almost think that we're just like complex animals, but when we look at the differences, the fact that we spirit things and animals don't. Now, I know some people will say, yeah, but this and that and the other, but you know what I mean. Let's not bandy with words. And that spiritism, the fact that we can spirit stuff, write stuff, express stuff, and leave it behind, timeless, and that gives us a lot of power. You can see how somebody can appear on a stage on television and millions of people can watch one person all at the same time. It's the technology that man has built and the spirit we put into it has made the most amazing magic possible, but most of us deny that it's just technology. We kind of get lost in our own hypnosis show. Law reflects life. Law rules our lives. We have to somehow be able to speak and be heard by the government and determine our own lives and not be presumed as helpless victims of a society. But I'm left with the most basic of problems of just trying to talk to people about the Bible and the legal system, and people reject both. Everything else, you can talk about anything else, but you can't talk about legislation or the Bible, because people don't believe in them. And they're not there to believe in, just like computer software isn't there to believe in. It's running now. And there's those who can hack it, and there's those who are victims of its madness that it causes, that software. And the system is software. I can't change it, you can't change it, no one can change it. But there must be something provided in that system to allow certain freedoms and powers to be accessed by every individual. And so for me, I do a lot of research. I spend a lot of time with dictionaries. I've got Black's Law 7th edition Law Dictionary. I've got a Latin to German dictionary. I've got several concise English dictionaries and French dictionaries. And then I've got several copies of the Bible. And then I've got my own legislation, birth certificates, certificates of birth, passports, driver's licenses, insurances, all of the legislation that comes to me. Then I've got the acts and statutes of the different countries that I'm in, Germany and England at this moment, to compare. And looking at the national legislation, television licenses and all kinds of normal national registration, passports and things like that, what goes into all of that, international law, international treaties. So that's on my desk. So everything I'm looking at is just really quite dry and standard. It's not questionable, it's self-evident, And then I'm making connections. I'll read the words, I'll pick up my birth certificate and I'll read the first word and I'll look at it in the dictionary and find out how many different meanings there are and where the word comes from. The word "the" in itself is the most interesting word. It's a definite article. And the word "the" actually means God. Theology, theater, the arts. It's interesting, I think it's a Greek word, "the" is God, but the. So, just simple words like what does a man, or the man, just even the smallest of words, to look them up in different dictionaries, Latin, find out why it's different in German, how it's different. So I've got just such a small document as a birth certificate, and I can spend days on that one document, finding out where the tracking numbers go, like looking at the national seal and breaking down the heraldry aspects. You got lions and other figures and that, and if the paw's up or down, it means different things in heraldry. All of these tell stories about the piece of legislation. And then it goes into looking at the Bible. And I'll do the same with the Bible. I'll take a word, in the beginning, or in a beginning. You notice that right at the beginning of the Bible, it's in beginning. It doesn't say the beginning, or it's. So these have to be taken into consideration. You can take a whole week just reading like the first chapter of Genesis, the creation story, and writing down the mathematical numbers, and every time a new word is introduced, to take note of that word and how that word is then linked to the next word that's introduced. How the word earth and then dry land, and how the progression goes through. Connecting dots after dots after dots. And the most important aspect I find is back to legislation. When we're born, we're given a name. We're given a name by our parents, and it's, get the family name and a first name and a birth date, and we get registered with the government, and the government knows we exist, and so it's so they can start sending us letters, and obviously your name also means that your friends can talk about you while you're not there. You can write letters and people know who it's coming from. So the name has a function. It's like your spirit out there in the world that other people can use. It's like, I think it's called a Strawman as well, or a legal fiction, a legal person. Person is like a mask. So it's a mask that we wear, and this mask can be reproduced and around the world, but it remains your mask. We get this mask as a child, when we're crawling on four legs like an animal, we get given a number and a name. And because we have this person, this legal natural person at birth, our parents can then do things in our name. You see what I mean? It's quite obvious and logical. But there's this name going out there. There's this world of legal fiction. It's like a book in itself, like a film that you've entered, a game. I don't know, but it's a realm that your legal fiction exists in, and it reflects the real world. But it has certain extra powers that it gives you powers of invisibility. You can use your name without even leaving the house. We can sit on the computer and talk all around the world using the name, but our flesh and blood body remains in secret. That's one of the things that the name does to give us power. Another one is coercion. We get authority through the name, and we can use that authority to overpower others. So it has that ability. Also, long life. If you write something, and a testament or will or a song or a book or something, long after you've died, your name still lives on. So that's the spiritual aspect of the names. There's more things you can do with a name, and that name is obviously connected to the government body of legislation that sets the premise or the rules, the game rules, of that, based on ancient wisdom of the spirit of man. So like the legal system's like playing a game in a realm. When we go to court, there's a procedure going on there about the evidence, and it's a very strict procedure that's almost like writing a little story, but that story has to be a reflection of real life, and that story then determines the crime and everything, and the punishment. The same thing within the Bible. If you look in the Bible, you can see that obviously Adam and Eve and the snake and things like that, these are metaphors. These are stories that the reader should read, like any book, to get a sense of what the meaning is. And a lot of the times you've got moral situations, moral dilemmas that are set up by the authors, for you, the reader, to determine yourself. And within the Bible, it never usually says whether something's right or wrong. You just see the consequences, which are sometimes not always just. But you see, for example, Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. And God said to Adam, before Eve was created, don't eat from the tree of knowledge of good and bad and stuff. And so then Eve comes along, and she's tempted by the snake, and she says to Adam, she gives the apple to Adam, and so Apple says to God, she gave me the apple, and everybody's blaming each other. And you can see that moral situation, it's about the moral situation. It's not about the snake, and it's not about the paranormal, it's not about God creating stuff, or the tree and that. It's about a situation, and it's very layered and very deep. So the more you need to know, the more you can see within those examples, within those metaphors. But again, so what's happening is if we're looking for things in the Bible, mathematical formulas, particular wisdoms, particular concepts of divine law and how a God would be, maybe, and what problems God has, or the character Yahweh, what the problems he has making the laws right for man, And so it's taking it into a fiction world. But in that fictional world, just like in Lord of the Rings, there's a lot of like human wisdom, a lot of mathematics, a lot of everything in there. You can't say that it's all fantasy. There's a lot more reality to Lord of the Rings than the reality we live today. It's a lot more grounded in natural, the foundations of nature. And so obviously, again, the Bible, it has to use things like snakes, and it can't use a mobile phone. And it's like Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, and suddenly the mobile phone rings and Eve answers. It has to be simple, symbolic things that are part of nature, self-sustaining things that are not going to go away. A snake, it will live forever, just like a human, with the seed in itself. That's why the Egyptians used their symbology, and a lot of these monsters that have been created, eagles' heads with like lions' bodies and that, it's like a heraldry thing. The monster, the creature, depicts a character. There's obviously, if it's got a leopard's legs, it can go fast. If it's got wings, it can fly. If it's got the eye of an eagle, it can see above everything. These are the types of symbols that governments would give to themselves, national seals and things, But again, if you can read the heraldry symbols and know a lot what the tales that the bardic symbols give, it's like it connects with the Bible. But all the time, the legislation, the heraldry, the Bible, the language itself, all meet in a realm of fiction. We need to read every single piece of that literally. When they say don't take it literally, you shouldn't take anything as read. But you have to take things literally. You have to look at what the words mean. And if the words in the Bible contradict each other, we need to accept that as a contradiction and not just try and change the words to suit. If we don't like something that's been read, we can't just change its meaning, So there's that aspect of taking the literal work and the literal characters, to look at the characters in the Bible, for example, to look at like God as a character, Yahweh as a character, to look at Joseph as a character, or Noah as a character, Jacob a character, Jesus a character in a story. And they're all literal devices in that story. Just like in legislation and law, your legal personage, your name and address, how you are addressed, and the rules and circumstances is also the same fictional world. It's the same literal devices. Money is a negotiable instrument. It carries a value. That value is virtual. So what I'm saying really is like a lot of what I'm researching right now, it's like it's very deep on my head, and it means that I'm quite absent a lot of the time, and I try and find my way back. I try and find an end to my work. I keep finding more pieces, and I keep trying to introduce other people to the work, looking at the bridge between scripture and legislation and law. People generally reject the Bible and legislation, so there's not a lot of hope in me finding that many people who are going to go down that research. People say, oh, it's just another rabbit hole. Well, I've already found it, and I'm coming back to try and get people to help me to just find their own pieces, really. I don't think, like I've said on other videos, I don't think people really need to read the Bible in order to to move forward in life. But it's not such a big book, and it's considering the amount of time we spend on watching a lot of other videos and trying to find answers elsewhere, I think, well, if we halved that time and put half the time into looking at the legislation that we have in our own hands, our own birth certificates and passports and things that bind us to the system, and to have a look at the scriptures and of the Bible that bind the government to the system, then I think there's a lot achieved by that. If anybody can find another book or another answer other than the Bible, then I'd love to know. But I'm sat here all on my own, mostly, with very little help, with the Bible and all of this pile of dictionaries that I mentioned, and I'm finding connections every day, and that's why I'm drifting away. Now, I don't really want to drift away, but if nobody's going to be interested in looking at the Bible in a legal context, and looking at the legislation in a spiritual context, that's what we need to do. Well, that's what I need to do, and I need the people around me to take that on board, to look at that, to look at the spiritual aspect of law, and to look at the legal aspect of the Bible. I'm not, I do force my view on the Bible. When I'm talking to people, I say, look, the Bible's got layers, it's got many layers, but the layer that I'm looking at, the layer that I'm getting you to look at, is the layer that's connected with legislation and law and governments and the system that we live in. I'm not really interested in a spiritual side of things, because you are old enough and adult enough to understand a lot about your own spiritual self. It's the mutual side of life, the agreements that we've had to make over thousands of years as humanity, that we need to be looking at. The compromises, maybe. The fact that it just couldn't be any other way, it just has to be like this for now, until enough people are powerful enough to make the change. And I know the change will come. This is why I'm on film trying each time to change the message a little bit and say the same kind of thing. Look at the Bible, look at the legislation, look at in your heart, look at the people around you. These are the same kind of messages I always say. So I know that this is the answer. That once we have a new understanding for the Bible, a new understanding for the government and law and what it all means, then we can actually do something with it. Until then, it's just going to be a lot of moaning. It's going to be a lot of moaning, and this is wrong and that's wrong, and why is that stupid, and laughing at the government and laughing at politicians and seeing that it's a joke. But then, the jokes, once you've seen the same show 3 or 4 times, it's not a joke anymore. It's a merry-go-round, and you think, I'm bored of the merry-go-round now. I'm going to build my own ride. I'm going to build my own ride. I'm going to draw all the punters in, and it's going to be an honest ride, and it's going to show everybody this fairground for what it is. Because for too long now, we have a system that is based and founded on the Bible. We go into court, we swear on the Bible. The Queen's oath is said to the Bible. The coronation is based around the Vatican. Everything is based around the Bible. Queen's English, the languages, Babel, the 7 days a week, the calendar, everything goes back to the Bible. Why do people reject the book? And why do people put it into the spiritual, paranormal realm rather than seeing its day-to-day connection right now? The things that it's affecting right now. Have we not got a state of Israel that's imitating the biblical Israel? Maybe it'd do us good to actually look at what Israel is in the Bible and see if we can draw any parallels. See if we can understand why Jacob's name was changed to Israel. That Israel is Jacob. Jack. Frère Jacques, Dormez-vous, sonne le matin, ding dang dong. Bruder Jakob, schläfst du noch? Die Kirchenglocken läuten, ding dang dong. Brother John, sleeps you still? The church bells are ringing, ding dang dong. There's a church in every bloody village, What are we missing? Why have we rejected it? This is maybe a more interesting question before we even begin to break down the Bible. The books, the collection of books. Before we start to look at the legislation, maybe we should look at why we've become so traumatized by the two. Maybe we should look at in our own stomachs when we open an envelope that comes from authority, supposed authority. Next time you open your letterbox and there's something in there, look inside of your stomach, open that thing and observe yourself. Observe the way you feel when you're reading that piece of paper. Observe your feelings. Look at your own name and address on that piece of paper and ask, what's the connection between me and that name and this piece of paper and the government? Same with the church and the scriptures and things, How does it make you feel when you see the Jesus on the cross, or you see churches and scriptures and things? And then when you pick up the Bible, are you actually picking it up like a normal book, or do you feel like some kind of priest? Do you feel like some kind of like holy man, Or can you just pick it up like a normal book, like a dictionary, like a piece of legislation or literature? Can you do that? How does it make you feel? I think that's the place where we need to begin. To look at our legal status and the way it makes us feel, the way it ruins our good mood. Because then the mood changes, and mood affects the doom. The doom is the judgment. Your judgment becomes then like a darker judgment. And without enthusiasm, without optimism, this system appears differently. When you can actually see the answers, when you can see what's right, even though there's then maybe one answer among a million evils or ill-doings. Maybe you only find one little piece of sunlight, but that's the place to start. There's a bridge between your spirit and your strawman. If you try and reject one or the other or both, there's this feeling of just not being connected. Not being connected to the government, not being connected to yourself, not being connected to the universe, not being connected to humanity, not being connected to life. And I think that's what happens when we let our power get taken with our name, I'm starting to ramble on now. I like it though, but I'm going to stop it here. I'll see you later. Thanks for watching. And just take into consideration what I've said. Okay, cheerio.